Good morning, everyone. I am Shanice Neal-Otley, the Senior Manager of Communications for Generation Citizen, and I am here today with Allyson Cook, our Chief Programs and Impacts Officer. Hi, Allyson. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Shanice?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. The fall weather is rolling in, so I'm loving the spooky season energy. Okay, so let's get started. So tell me a little bit about your background and how your journey has led you to becoming the Chief Program and Impact Officer at Generation Citizen.
A little bit about my background. We won't stay forever on this, but I grew up loving school, loving reading, and loving learning about different cultures and different people. And naturally, that momentum pushed me into the world of education. And so spent my undergrad and graduate time really leaning into the education space and educational leadership, just really focused on how can I deepen my knowledge around pedagogy, but also structures to support positive school communities and how to really create that learning environment, not just for students, but also for teachers. And after engaging in work in both schools and the nonprofit sector, just really found that what energized me was working in collaboration with others to really support teachers in their development, to really have a far impact for students. And so spent the last 7 years working for another nonprofit organization where I really had the privilege and the honor of developing their coaching approach to working with teachers, and also strengthening their teacher professional development. And then also really working with their staff on the ground and implementing that program model, which was a natural progression to Generation Citizen, where I get to work with folks across our program team, but also our national program team, really leading the charge around strengthening our core program, understanding what do we need to do to enhance our curriculum, but then truly taking space and time to understand how we can use data to inform our partnership strategies as we engage with district leaders across the country.
Oh my gosh, yes, I love all of that. Yes, the work that you're doing is insanely inspiring, especially your piece on working on professional development for educators. I feel like that's really, really important. So speaking of inspiration, what inspired you to join Generation Citizen? Are there any personal experiences or values that drive your commitment to this work?
Absolutely. While I had the opportunity to work in the New York City space, visiting schools in the last 10 years or so, I actually had an opportunity where I was brought together by the Student Success Network with Generation Citizen, where that was the first opportunity where I heard about the work that was happening, particularly in our New York City schools. And that was just an aha moment for me. I was like, wow. This organization is really activating teachers to support students in ways that they need now more than ever, right? And so it was really great to kind of keep a pulse on what GC was doing over the years. I was the type of person who always wants to, keep connections with people. And so relationships is something that really drives my day-to-day interactions with folks in GC, outside of GC, in schools and in different communities. And so I've been able to stay in touch with folks over the years in GC, and there happened to be an opportunity where there was an opening, and I kind of jumped at that moment, right? There was an opportunity for me to make a pivot in my career to really take all the learning and action that I've done in previous roles and marry it and really bring it to GC, to really take what had already been started when GC made the shift to a teacher-led model back in 2020. To continue that work. And again, that personal commitment for myself. I remember being a classroom teacher and really feeling what do I need as a classroom teacher to do this work? And I started my career in a community school, and this idea of really being in a school community with students and with teachers, and really supporting all the needs that students have is something that was really important to me. And really understanding student voice and sharing power with young people is really what kind of motivates me day to day, and why kind of the opportunity to join GC when they were looking for someone to really own the work that our national program team did felt like this opportunity that I wanted to lean into, and was really excited to join the team about a year ago.
Yeah, look at that. Look at the growth in a year. Allyson. Okay. So as the Chief Program and Impact Officer, and I think you touched on this a bit, what are your main responsibilities within the organization?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think when I sit back and think about, my days, my weeks, my months, the goals for the organization and for myself and the team, as a high level, as a headline, really, I see my main responsibility is to drive our programmatic and partnership strategy while really leaning into leading our national program function that really provides the foundational vision and what I like to deem world-class support to a diverse set of regional program teams across the country. But the work doesn't stop there, right? I really see part of my main responsibilities is being somebody that's positioned to listen to what our constituents need. And when I say constituents, I'm thinking about, of course, our students and teachers, but also our partnership team, also our regional program teams, and listening to what they need to drive their work. And really taking that feedback and that input and designing kind of what is our approach as a national program team to really account for those needs. Do we need to be enhancing our staff PD, our staff professional development? Do we need to be asking more questions about our evaluation structure? How do we connect the dots between the work that's happening in schools and in communities, but also with our internal structures? And so I really do try to make time on a daily basis to seek out those who I might not work with as direct, to really kind of share what I'm hearing across the organization to really enhance the strategy that our senior management team provides for driving the organization to reach our outcomes.
Awesome. And I mean, it's clear to me, but for the people watching, how do you see your role contributing to the mission and vision of Generation Citizen?
I mean, sometimes that's a lofty question, right? And that's, I think, why I try to position myself as someone who can listen to what folks are saying they need internally to GC and outside of GC, really because our core program work is really to ensure that students and teachers have the skills, tools, and knowledge to enhance and develop their own civic engagement skills. And so naturally that lives with our core program, which I think naturally kind of motivates us to contribute to the mission and vision of Generation Citizen as an organization.
Exactly. Perfect. You see, perfect response. You know exactly. You know exactly what to say. So I wanted to get into a few questions centering around Generation Citizen's impact.
Mm-hmm.
So in your view, what distinguishes Generation Citizen's approach to civic education from other organizations?
Yeah, that's such a great question, and one that I love to kind of share with folks as I have conversations about the work that we're doing and kind of why civic education is so important in today's time. But Generation Citizen is truly focused on providing schools and communities with action civics, right? That's grounded in project-based learning, where we're giving students the opportunity to lead kind of what's happening in the classroom, right? They're doing the work and they're learning by doing, right? That whole name around action is kind of the key word right there. And so when we think about traditional civic education, where you're giving students a textbook, that's one way to do the work. And what we're hoping to do is really provide space and time for students to kind of drive the learning in the classroom, do the actual research that needs to be done. We're providing students an opportunity in a curriculum where they are identifying a focus issue, something that's real in their communities that they want to solve, and giving them the space and time and protocol and support to actually find answers to those challenges or those problems that they're identifying. I think that's really inspiring for young people, right? Giving them autonomy to ask the hard questions and have courageous conversations in the classroom is important. And so that's one aspect I think that differentiates us from other civic education providers. But also what I'm really energized about is how we're supporting teachers. And so Generation Citizen has a responsive coaching approach where our program staff, our coaches are going into the schools and creating safe spaces to really respond to the needs of both students and teachers. And this is also grounded in equity, right? Really understanding what's happening in our communities that we are engaged with, which are, again, communities across the country, and really focusing on teachers naming what are their needs and how we can help close the gap on their needs. And that starts with our professional development, usually at the start of a semester or at the start of a school year, but we continue that journey and that learning over the course of the semester or the year with teachers. And so we internally as an organization really are grounded in really inclusive approaches to supporting the needs of teachers, because we know that teachers obviously have so much to do, but they also have varying levels of experience in the civic education space.
Yeah, that's I believe in that 100%. Because I mean it's simple as the more you pour into teachers, the more they're able to pour into the students and vice versa. So could you highlight a few impactful moments that demonstrate Generation Citizens' effectiveness?
Yes, this is something that I think internally we're constantly talking about across the organization around our wall of wins and just appreciations for one another. But one moment that sticks out at the top of my mind is an opportunity where I had the experience where I was able to actually go to one of our New York Civics Days this year, which is the culminating event for our students and teachers where they get to showcase what their civic projects have been. And it's really an empowering moment because all you hear, the buzz in the room is really the youth voice. Students
Yeah.
are the ones doing all the talking and adults are kind of just asking questions. But we had a teacher in Brooklyn recently reach out to update us on the project that continued past Civics Day, which is of course really exciting for me because you may think like, oh, students have done the curriculum, teachers facilitated this learning, and it kind of stops at Civics Day because it's kind of like the culminating event. But what's really exciting is when we hear moments where the learning and the projects continue on. And that's usually a question I pose to students is, well, what happens after Civics Day? What happens after today? What are you going to do next? And this teacher shared with us that students, because of their lobbying and persistent advocacy that extended beyond the civic semester, a council member awarded them $25,000 to the campus so that they could hire a community-based organization to help provide safe passage for students in a downtown Brooklyn community after school. And it's just, again, it shows the power of what role students and youth can play in making change happen in their communities, but it also brings people in the community, the adults, right? Council members, people who play a role in civic life, coming to them and listening to the needs of their constituents. And again, what was really great is the reflection that happened in that class with that teacher, them being able to kind of name like that wasn't the original goal of the project, but it was awesome to see that this was an actual byproduct of the work that they did during their project. And so students are still engaged. They recently held an interest meeting for their own youth leadership council through New York City Services and the mayor's office, and had already recruited about 11 students to this initiative. And so it just shows kind of like the power of what our curriculum does for students, right? It's grounded in not only centering youth voice and students doing the learning, like learning by doing, but it also just, it's inspiring, right? And so I think about all of the folks who knew about this project in the school community, the principal, other teachers getting excited about what's actually happening in their community. And, again, what I love about the work that we see with young people is they become role models for each other, right? And so it might not be an adult that's really inspiring the shift or the change, but it's really the collaboration that happens in the classroom. It's about the process of how do you build consensus when people have different opinions? How do you have appropriate discourse and dialogue in the classroom? And our curriculum is really founded on creating democratic classroom cultures. And so it also talks about the work that we do with our teachers, and the program manager who supported that group of students, that teacher is still engaged with GC today. And it really, the success of that project really also is a testament to their work as someone who was dedicated in asking the questions of the teacher, engaging with, what were the things that were hard for the teacher and really coaching them through that experience. And so really proud of all of our program staff who are on the ground. I'm engaging with both the students and the teachers in this journey together.
Yes, that was such an exciting one. I remember interviewing two of the presenters when we were at that New York Civics Day, and it was really great to see at that age the vigor and like the excitement behind like, you know what, I noticed this problem in my community. I'm seeing that these are the tools available to me to help me figure out how I could solve it, and then actually putting that into action. And this is great because I remember them telling me that they wanted to continue throughout the summer. So to hear this, it's like a nice come together moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so clearly there's a lot of impactful times happening at GC behind the scenes and front the scenes to the side of the scenes. So how does Generation Citizen measure that impact? And what metrics do you all find the most meaningful?
Yes, GC has a very healthy and energized data culture. And one of the things that's really important for us as a team, as a community, is to really ask ourselves, well, what are we trying to solve for? What are we hoping to achieve as an organization and as teams? And so it's been a privilege really to work with all of the program leaders across the organization to really kind of unpack kind of what does regional impact look like? What does organizational and national impact look like? And creating internal structures and protocols to really have those conversations. And when I often think about our impact, I think about the questions that we're seeking to answer with our program, right? So what benefits are students receiving from Action Civics? And we believe that Action Civics provides civic knowledge skills, and civic motivation. Furthermore, we believe that the program really bolsters their own social emotional growth. And we really want to see in the long term that Action Civics allows students to be at the forefront of creating a more just, participatory, and inclusive democracy. Another question that we seek to answer is, what are the benefits that teachers receive? And so this is really something that's exciting currently where we are at GC, because we made the shift to a teacher-led model back in 2020. And so we're really defining what are we hoping to see change for teachers. And we want teachers to become more effective at facilitating project-based learning and creating more student-led lessons through Action Civics. And we really hope to see that teachers develop stronger relationships rooted in mutual respect and trust with their students as a result of facilitating Action Civics. And then we're also thinking about this third question around what are the ripple effects of Action Civics? And so we believe that it makes students more likely to be civically engaged in the future, growing their own locus of control by engaging in Action Civics. And what we kind of just highlighted with the Civics Day projects, believing that Action Civics allows student voices to be heard, not just in schools, but in their grander community, right? And so when I think about the metrics that we're looking for is we're looking to see that students are gaining their civic knowledge, gaining civic skills, and then gaining civic motivation. And it's been really exciting to unpack that over the last year at my time at GC, because right now, for all three of those metrics, we're hovering around 75% of students who feel comfortable and they are gaining those civic skills, knowledge, and motivation. And we're hoping kind of to see that increase over time, really by diving deep into assessing the effectiveness of our actual curriculum with students, which we do right now through surveys, but we're also thinking about what does it look like to connect with our own policy and advocacy team, where we house our youth voice and alumni programming to really see this through line between students who actually participate in the program. Well, what do we see as they grow and mature in their educational careers, and then what happens post-graduation, right? Are we seeing students who engage in Action Civics going on to actually do any work or voter registration activities or going into actual policy initiatives? So those are exciting areas of our work that we're starting to explore at a deeper level.
That's amazing. Wow. I really love how the youth is prioritized through our organization. I feel like it's very important because they are the future. They are the next generation that is going to, help take us forward. So that's amazing.
Yes.
So what strategies do you plan to implement in your new role to further Generation Citizens impact?
Yeah, well, again, I think when I think about strategies and just my own locus of control or kind of what organizational power I hold, I definitely go back to kind of relationships. And so the relationships that I have externally and internally also drive the strategy to really to further our own impact as an organization. I mean, right now we're really focused on leaning into strengthening our core program work by implementing our responsive coaching, but also tracking this in greater detail to really identify what are the core components where teachers are thriving, right? Where are they excelling? Where are we actually seeing them move in terms of developing strong facilitation of Action Civic skills? But then also, where can we build even more content to support further engagement with teachers and further developing their teacher practice? I mean, this comes from a lot of feedback from our teachers on the ground, focus groups, our teacher leadership board, asking more questions around like, how can we bring data to students? And so we really want to take understanding kind of what needs to happen for teachers, where we can further develop their own practice by providing them with more opportunities to engage with our content and developing more content. And we know over the years how effective the Generation Citizen curriculum and teacher professional development is. And we've seen there's an opportunity now for us to develop a suite of teacher PD, teacher training that helps supporting growing students in action civics, but also really leaning into teachers as our core demographic of constituents, right? And so
Yeah.
one of the ways that we're hoping to really do this at a scalable way and at a quick way, because we know teachers will tell us today what they need and they're going to need it to
Come on.
right? And so we've really embarked on this exciting journey of developing and building our own learning management system, which we call GC Connect, to provide just more of these learning opportunities for teachers that will also pair nicely with the coaching that happens, right? So knowing that our coaching model is grounded in equity and inclusiveness, we want to make sure that we're providing content to teachers that they can access at any time. We know how busy teachers are, and so we really want to make sure that teachers, with the ease of a click, can go to our website, log in, and access content that they know their coach has kind of already decided this is a pathway for you to engage with. And then that, I think, also will create potential opportunities for us to reach teachers who maybe aren't implementing our curriculum at a district level or at a school level, right? Maybe there's a teacher in a state where they don't have a civic seal or a civic mandate, but they want to kind of engage in this work. We're exploring what it would look like to provide those opportunities.
Awesome. This is great. Great. So my other question would be to that. How has Generation Citizen adapted its programs and strategies, especially in response to like changing societal and educational landscapes?
Yeah, and again, I think Generation Citizen, we take our cues from our partners. What are we hearing in the field that we need to be responsive to? And so we value the experience of all of our partners and those needs, and we use that to inform our strategies to support teacher development, to support how do we engage deeply with a district. And one element that I think is starting to really percolate and show up in our work more is the level of involvement at the district level, right? And so we're hearing a lot from district leaders when we're partnering with them and when we start with teacher BD, that they want to be involved more because I think they know how important their involvement is to ensuring that teachers feel supported to do this work, because we know right now, there are targets on teachers' backs. What teachers say and do in the classroom is really honed in under a microscope. And so teachers are looking for the support of their district leaders, their principals, their administrators. And so we're recognizing that need in real time and working with our program directors and executive directors to really develop a support structure, a mechanism to this approach where we are, engaging with district leaders and giving them data in real time on what's happening with program implementation. How can they be supportive? We're thinking about what are the core competencies we want to see with partnership at the district level. And I think that in some of the initial partnerships where we've had these conversations, hearing district leaders say, how can I be more supportive of this work for my teachers, is like music to my ears, right? It really also hones in on the fact that we are not just vendors coming into communities and schools, we're truly partners, right? And we want to hear what's showing up for them in their day-to-day so that we can be responsive to a implementation plan that works for not just the teachers, not just the students, but also the administrators. And I think this is the really exciting work that's happening across the country, where I just get excited by hearing from our program directors, district leaders are saying this is what they need, or district leaders are saying that data around coaching was really helpful. And so really thinking about this partnership arc is part of the work that we've been doing to really be adaptive. And I think we're nimble, we're flexible, and we want to continue to lean in on what are the cues we're hearing from folks in the field to inform how we move forward.
Yes. And to piggyback off of that a bit, I'm thinking about how civics education, like the challenges that are taking place in our nation right now. And I'm curious, like, how do you envision Generation Citizen evolving to address the current challenges and the future challenges in civic education that we may come across?
Yes, Generation Citizen is an open-minded organization. That's one of our core values. And I think that that's one that is necessary in today's climate. And we want to continue to be positioned as a leader in the civic education space. And we're committed to having a seat at the table to also learn from those who are involved in this space. There are other organizations, other schools, other practitioners who are doing this work. And we want to learn from them as well so that we can be inclusive, but also adapt over time. And we believe that in order to evolve over time to address these challenges in the civic education space, it is absolutely paramount that we listen and we understand what is at the root the root cause for these hardships to develop an approach that continues to advance equity and uplifting youth voices. And so we're doing that in a number of ways, in coalitions, with our actual practices of hearing from teachers and developing a feedback cycle to hear from staff. And we're also recognizing, how do we diversify our program to meet the needs of folks in different communities. And so we very much so work in urban communities, we work in suburban communities, but we also work in rural communities. And how action civics shows up in all three of those archetypes is very different. And so we want to be nimble to that. I also think we're actively showing up in this current moment where civic education is kind of at the forefront of conversations with parents, school leaders, and young people want to be involved in their communities. And so Generation Citizen is going to continue to think creatively and strategically about ways to provide parents, school leaders, and youth with access to high quality action civic education and those experiences.
Yes, 100% agree with you. The youth do want to be involved. Just attending that New York Civics Day earlier this year, it's so clear that they have something to say,
Yes.
and that this program helped them to develop and cultivate that voice to where when they say something, it has an impact.
Right.
So are there any new initiatives or partnerships that are on the horizon that you're excited about and willing to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think Generation Citizen, we don't just partner with school communities, but we also partner with other organizations. One initiative that I'm excited to briefly kind of like highlight is a partnership that we worked on with the Department of Education and the Education Defense Center, where we worked with them on creating a actual curriculum that can be used with teachers and schools across the country. And this also really ignites kind of my passion on like, what does continuing support look like for educators, right? And so at Generation Citizen, all of our teachers who engage in our program have the opportunity to always be connected with Generation Citizen through our educator network, which is an exciting opportunity for teachers who have taught our curriculum for a couple of years, but maybe they don't need all of the coaching and support that we provided initially. And so they get to be in this educator network where we provide different opportunities for them to continue engaging with our curriculum. They'll always have touch points with our regional team members, but we're actively right now developing what could a differentiated approach for educators in that network be based on kind of their needs. Folks who are in the educator network are really the ones who have become the experts in facilitating Generation Citizens Action Civics curriculum. And so we want to really activate those folks and give them opportunities to show off their great skills. Are there opportunities for us to bring them to events to speak, to connect with a new Generation Citizen teacher? And so we're actively thinking about what that cultivation can look like over time. And I'm really excited for some of the work that's happening in our state of Oklahoma. We're actually piloting a rural educator network cohort because we know in rural communities what teachers often want is moments where they can connect with peers. And so I'm really excited about the work that's happening in Oklahoma around our educator network.
Yes, I am too. So can you discuss the importance of advocacy and community engagement when it comes to achieving these goals or other goals for GC?
Yeah, I think this is the culmination of kind of like why we're here, right? We really recognize that students, they know what happens when they walk home from school and they see something in their town, on their street, on their home block that needs to change. And of course, our curriculum is great, giving them space to kind of go into that and learn by doing. But really the opportunity for them to see what community engagement can be and advocating for spaces where youth can be present in those spaces. A lot of times, I hear from young people that they don't feel that they can be in public spaces or public forums where their voice is heard. I often think about my own town and the community board and when change is enacted, right? I often look around the room and do I see young people? No. And so I see myself playing a role as an advocate to kind of name when we should be sharing space with young people and getting them involved in the community. Again, like you named, we know the young people are the future. They're going to be taking care of us one day, and they're going to be leading our communities and our spaces. And so what does it look like to actually bring them into the space right now where they can have the conversation, where they can share their input, their questions? And that's really all that they want, right? They want an opportunity to be in the same rooms with us. And it's about, can we share that power? And so I really see that the community engagement and the advocacy that we do as individuals in GC, outside of GC, really complements the work of our core program. And so it just creates, I think, appropriate synergy when we think about, initiatives across the organization, or opportunities where we're able to elevate what's happening in local spaces and how that's connected to the work that we're doing at Generation Citizen. And this is one that I think is really exciting too, because it shows up in our day-to-day. When I have a team meeting or we have a program team meeting and we're talking about who we are as adults, right, in the community, or if most of us on the program team are former classroom teachers, like what's showing up in the community for teachers and the pressures they have, being able to kind of bring that into our goals as an organization, but also how we address inequities in the system is something that I think is top of mind, and one that is always going to be relevant no matter where you go, right? That's relevant in Los Angeles, California, New York City area, but also in Tulsa, right, Oklahoma. And so I think that that's a through line between all of our work and how it shows up in our day-to-day.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And I know, just obviously from working at GC and also connecting with several of our staff on a day-to-day, I see a lot of the thought that goes into, how we show up in certain spaces. And as someone that manages a lot of our like external messaging and frequently talking to the public, I'm always getting asked like, well, what role can I play? So as someone that's a part of the broader public, what role can they play in supporting Generation Citizen's mission and contributing to that impact?
Yeah, I think that's a really helpful question to bring to this conversation. And of course, there are ways to kind of stay active with Generation Citizen, whether it's signing up for our newsletter, whether it's bringing Generation Citizen to a teacher or a principal that you know, like those are some more tangible ways. But when I think about the broader public and the broader mission for Generation Citizen and our vision around bringing young people into a democracy, I think that's when it's, thinking about who are the young people that in your community, right? And bringing them into spaces where you are able to share power with them. I think about the role that we all play, whether it's with family, whether it's with our cousins, whether it's with someone that you see at the playground, like bringing young people to the table and asking them what matters to them is, I think, the easiest way in which we all can play a role in supporting Generation Citizen's mission. And just asking a young person, well, what do you think about this? And I think it's always interesting when you ask a student that question, right? And you can tell when it's the first time someone's asked them for their opinion, right? They look at you kind of like, wait, are they really asking me? Yes, we want to hear from you. And I think that starts with kids who are in, the youngest ages, right? A 2-year-old versus, your kids who are ready to graduate high school, right? That question always has a meaning behind it, and being able to kind of start with the young people first instead of posing our opinions as adults on young people is kind of what's coming to mind for me.
1000%. Oh my gosh, this conversation has been amazing. I have gotten so much value from it, even as a team member at GC. So as we come to a close, I really wanted to put the spotlight back on Allyson, the person, and hear more about, your personal reflections and visions. So looking ahead, what legacy do you hope to leave as the Chief Program and Impact Officer?
Yes, such a big question. And one that I honestly have thought a lot about, right? Coming to the organization, coming to GC, and knowing all of the great work that has already happened in the organization's history and tenure. What I, really hope to leave in terms of a legacy, I just really want to ensure that we have an inclusive and an equity-centered program model, right? Not just from the lens of our students and teachers, but also for our staff. The work that we do isn't easy. It's hard, and some days are easier than others, but some days you go into a conversation with a team member or a teacher, and you're coming down to why this work really matters. We've done our job then if we're having that inclusive space, and it's a safe space, right? I want to make sure that our program model is one that can continue to grow, because I think it's so important. I often think about conversations when people say, oh my gosh, the work that Generation Citizen is doing, it needs to be everywhere. Absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that the program model, the implementation of our work is one that can withstand time, right? And so really thinking about how you do it in person, how can it be done virtually? Are there opportunities where it can be done synchronously or asynchronously? All of those questions. I want a program model and an implementation strategy that can really withstand time, but also account for the changes that happen in society, because we know they're coming, right?
Oh, yeah,
Change is
absolutely.
inevitable. And I want to be able to leave a legacy that, talks just about, what matters to me in terms of how we get this work done. It's really grounded in relationships, right? I would not be here if it weren't for the relationships and the pouring in that people in my professional space and in my personal space have done for me. And so I often am looking to continue to create relationships where people feel the same from me, right? So yeah.
That sounds amazing. I really love your point about essentially that adaptability, like being able to create something that is going to withstand time and be able to bend and shift to just
Mhm.
best meet the needs of the people who'll be utilizing that for
Exactly.
years to come. So I really love that. And my last question, so young people are at the center of our work, as we've discussed already. So what advice would you give a young person or young people who are interested in pursuing careers in civic education and societal impact?
Yes, that's easy. One that I always, anytime I see a young person, I say this. I'm like, don't wait, do it now. If you have an
Mhm.
idea, you have a question, talk about it today. It doesn't matter if you're 5, if you're 15, if you're 25. You matter, your voice matters. Ask the question, talk to the people that are in front of you, and they'll make a way for you. They will, or they will guide you to the individuals that you need to talk to. And I've seen that, with my own classroom of students that I've had, about 10 years ago, kind of when they wanted to have a community event, whether it was founded in like a dance recital or what have you, giving them the space to ask the questions and try it on. Adults will give young people that space, right? And so it's really about young people, take what you want to do, ask the questions, and we'll make a way for it to happen.
Yes. Oh, what a great way to end our interview, Allison. It was really, 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 really good speaking to you this morning. I really enjoyed this conversation and look forward to what you do next.
Thank you so much, Denise, for making the space and time. It's such a pleasure when we always get to connect, and really love the work that you're doing to really further GC's mission and vision as well.
Yay. Thank you so much.